All right, and welcome everybody. It's good to have everybody here on this practice session of Pros on Demand. And I'm happy to have our real estate coach with us today, and that is Coach Marci Dane. And welcome.
Hello.
Well, we're glad to have you. This is actually a part 2 of our real estate series. Yesterday we did a series to kind of give it a little bit of an introduction on real estate strategies, which covered a whole host of different things of a lot of things that you've been equipped with over the past several years that you've been involved in property management and real estate. So just to kind of dig in a little bit and kind of give us an update on who you are and what you've been doing, would you kind of just briefly give us a maybe a 30-year snapshot of your experience and where you're at today currently with opportunities?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share. We appreciate One Team and everything that they're bringing to the industry and helping everybody network together. So basically my story is that I started in the manufactured housing industry back in 1979. I graduated from high school, went to a small college in Oklahoma City and stayed there for a little bit. And then in May of 79, I ended up attending West Texas State University, and which is now, I think, Texas A&M. So I worked part-time and learned how to be a loan processor, basically how to read contracts written by salespeople, which is not always the easiest thing to do. Put them in a package to be processed by a lender, and then it was my job to make sure that the loans funded so the customers' houses could be delivered and everybody got paid. So this was a small lot, selling only about 3 to 4 houses a month in Amarillo, Texas. And then from there, I moved to Odessa, Texas. The gentleman who owned that location in Amarillo closed down the location, decided to go in partners with a larger group in Odessa. And the girl that had been the loan processor there for over 15 years quit. And so they called me, and I came into that position. And from doing about 3 or 4 loans a month, I went to do 25 to 40 loans a month with about 4 lots. So needless to say, I got a quick lesson in how to do loan processing and do it correctly and do it quickly, because those salespeople wanted their paychecks and the customers wanted their houses delivered. So then I was promoted to a small lot in a small town called Denver City, Texas. And where I learned everything from how to set up a mobile home to manage the lot, not only being responsible for sales and inventory, but also again, the loan processing of it. And then I went back to Odessa, Texas, and I began basically just my solo career as far as sales. And then from there to Dumas, Texas, to Albuquerque, New Mexico, to Austin, and finally ended up in Dallas, Fort Worth in about 1985. I've been here ever since. So I began my own dealership in about 2000 and kept it till about 2010, 2011. And along the journey of owning my own dealership, I met lots of people who owned land and wanted to sell their land. So of course, the people buying our homes needed places to put their property, so this worked out great. So after 10 years of cultivating relationships with different landowners, I continued to cultivate the relationship as we transitioned out of the mobile home dealership, and they needed someone to help liquidate their assets in their land. So probably becoming part of an investment group was one of the best decisions that I ever made. And not that I had a lot of money at that point in time, but I had a lot of knowledge and a lot of information that made me an asset to the group. So from there, the rest is pretty much history, as I focused primarily on just land sales for the past 10 years and sprinkled in with 3 or 4 of the manufactured home sales or site built sales along with the land through each year as well. So that pretty much brings us up to today. So I know you kind of wanted to focus on the rent to own opportunity. So
Yeah,
Let me know.
well, yeah, and all that is good information to know because it kind of gives us an idea, perspective, as you, one of our coaches that have seen all the different sides, the different facets, the different angles of what's involved in the tracks, transition, the transaction, the process, the sales, all of those things that have to come together to really make it work. And I know that one of the things that we're talking about today, out of a lot of different owner, seller, buyer situations, whether they're in a distressed property or they need to relocate or they're, they've got a different job or they're going through some credit challenges, whatever that may be, those are all factors that kind of play into every scenario. So every scenario is different, but I think the confidence that we have with you is the fact that you've seen a lot, you've done a lot over a lot of years, and part of the real estate strategy is really just trying to be creative to put the deals together. And this typically falls outside of the parameters, so to speak, of a typical real estate agent or a broker or things like that. So I think that gives us an opportunity to tap into those revenue streams, so to speak.
I think one of the biggest things that gives you an advantage with your one team members is because everything is relational, especially with insurance or any type of business that you have. The people that keep coming back to you, they come back to you because of the relationship. The reason why these investors contacted me is because I built a relationship with them over the years. And so with insurance people, especially people who sell homeowners insurance or PNC building insurance, everybody knows somebody. So especially in the rent to own situation, if you just end a tagline with it, hey, by the way, if you ever know anybody that's wanting to liquidate their property, give us a call. And they may not want to do a rent to own situation, but at least it opens the door to them knowing that you have an avenue for that. And also that they have an avenue of knowing people that might be in that sphere of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, let's really talk about that a little bit, because when you kind of mention that a little bit in the real estate world, everybody kind of shuns away from that, not the rent to own. And I know where we're at specifically, there's really nobody in our community that's really doing rent to own. Everybody's always a landlord. Everybody's, that's just typically the standard of how they've always done business. But when we flip this around a little bit and we start thinking about this particular process, and one of the things that I talked about yesterday in part one of this series is that we eliminate the toilets, trash, and the tenants. We from a landlord, we become an investor or have that opportunity to take advantage of a lot of different things throughout this process. So let's talk about that process just a little bit, the rent to own, and what that may mean from an opportunity standpoint for members, for boots on the ground with different situations.
Well, just a couple of things. I think rent to own opportunities are great because it's just like you said, it gets you out of being the fix and repair guy. And people who want to be homeowners genuinely want to take pride in their home. So where other people will just trash it out, or we just have, not to say that I don't have any rental properties, we do have some. And of course, you go in there and there's holes punched in the walls and all that kind of stuff. Normally you don't find that when you do a rent to own type situation, because they know they're investing their hard-earned money into something that's going to benefit them. So, and it's really the American dream to own a piece of dirt and have a house to call home. So as far as the rent to own goes, I would just say, really, you just need to network with the people and just ask everybody you meet, hey, do you know anybody who's interested in selling their property, you know. And once you do that, you've got to throw a lot of stuff out there. Like I said, I've been doing this for 40 years. So the more you talk,
You started when you were 10?
Yeah, right. So the more you talk and the better you listen, the more information you can find. Because if people don't know what you're interested in or what you could invest in or how you can help them, then you'll never be able to accomplish what you want to do. So rent to own is definitely a breed of its own, but it gives people that don't necessarily have good credit, or maybe they do have good credit, but they don't have the ability to have $20,000 down saved up to get into something. So there are a lot of people that are saying, hey, I want to transition out of being a landlord and I want to sell my property. And, you know, Mike, if you're in Cushing, you know, can you help me? And so being a part, having some kind of equitable measure in that transaction gives you the opportunity to be able to do that. And when I say equitable, that's a determination you're going to have to make between the homeowner and you. So I would just suggest if the people that are members of one team, if they will get you that information, then you can kind of do the heavy lifting and know if there's a potential there for it to be a rent to own situation. Just get the information to you. And then from there, the people that are experts in the different areas as far as how to put that package together, the loan processing, we're not expecting your members to be the experts in that. We just want them to say, hey, John Brown is got a house that he's tired of being the landlord on. You know, Mike, do you know anybody that can help him? And so that gives you an opportunity to be able to, whoever your member is, and identify you to John Brown and say, hey, Mike Kennedy has got a program that might be able to fit your needs. And from there, you take it to the different sectors that need to be put in place. And then that way, the one team member can stay focused on what they do, what their strategies are to build their business, but yet it brings an extra stream of income into them by just giving you information on who that person might be for a property transitioning.
Right. Well, and it constitutes creating a game plan with each different situation. And we talk about, again, the opportunity. The opportunities are going to be extended to the landlords that, again, may be tired of being in the rental business, but they want to flip that around. A lot of landlords that I know too, Marci, they've had renters in their houses for years, but yet they're still taking care of the toilets and the trash and the different, you know, painting and doing those types of things. They're still responsible for the insurance and the taxes, and that rental income is taxable. So if they understand the process here and the opportunity by flipping that around as becoming the investor, putting that off on the potential buyer that's already been in the house, that they've already qualified really, then landlords can really see a whole different opportunity without being saddled and burdened with all the things that come attached with being a landlord. One other opportunity. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's just in keeping the process simple. Just tell your members to get you the information. And then because you already have that trust factor with your members, they know that you're going to represent them the best way possible. And in turn, you're going to represent your members the best way possible too. And it'll be a win-win for everybody. But again, it's just get the members to get the information to you. And that way you can go to the people that you know are skilled in those particular areas. If it's your lender, if it's an investor, if it's a landlord, whoever it is that can best fit that need for that transition for that landlord, so he can make it an asset that he can liquidate at some point in time. It may be 90 days, 6 months, a year. It may need to be a 2-year transition. at whatever point, as long as they know you can help them through that process. And the simpler you make it for the landlord, the simpler you make it for the renter, and the simpler you make it for your member, the easier it'll be.
Right. Well, and a lot of the expertise that we come to you for is really helping to structure that deal. What makes sense? How can we do it? What's the turnaround time? And you know, again, there's many different ways of doing that without actually having to be the realtor. And of course, you walk us through all those, the process and stuff of how to really make that an equitable transaction transition between everybody.
If I could share anything with your members that I think would help them is, I always wanted to surround myself with successful people who were smarter than me in the areas that I wanted to be good at. So from going out and watching and learning how a mobile home was set up to learning how to process loans, from the #1 loan processor in the Tri-Tex area, not only process them, but get them funded, meaning everybody gets paid. So all of the successful people I connected had a couple of things in common, and they were focused on what they wanted to be good at. So we want your members to be focused at what they're good at and just get you the information so we can get it to them. And they surround themselves with people who are better than them. You know, that is probably one of the #1 things that has probably made it, you know.
Yeah, well, that's what we try to have everybody focus on. You know, continue to build on your strengths. Let somebody else fill in the things that you can't do as well. But like you said, surround yourself. And by doing so, you create those multiple streams of income, which is, again, based off of the relationship that you already have. So
just making yourself available to those people. You asked me about one significant story or something, but I can just tell you, just recently, we're just doing what we're doing. People call us about property, you know, we answer their calls, and a lot of times people really don't want to buy what we have, but they want to know what their property's worth. And so we ran into a gentleman, long story short, he ended up to where he has several commercial pieces of property available on Main Street in Frisco, which I don't know if your members are familiar with Frisco and Collin County, but that is like the #1 growth place in America. And to be able to get property in Frisco on Main Street is like next to nothing. This guy's owned this stuff since 1972, and he won't sign up with a realtor, but we have an investment team that can take control of his property, and we can do something with it at that point. So it's an amazing. Once you do one, you'll see how it's such a dynamic shift into creating that extra stream of revenue.
Right. You know, and actually going through and fulfilling that whole process. And I know we had an opportunity to work on a particular thing, but the story behind that is that when it's all said and done, when all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and they sign their name on a piece of paper that says, hey, this is yours, that becomes pretty special too in that process.
Oh yeah, I can remember the one rent to own that we did. You know, the people were so thrilled at the closing table. You know, I think she hugged me for 5 minutes solid. You know, because they knew they needed assistance. They knew they needed help through the process. You know, and I would really encourage your members to think of probably 5 people who have really inspired them to be what they want to be and how that kind of process worked. I can name 5. One is Mike Moore, and he was a master at understanding P&Ls and how the business runs from a financial standpoint. And then 2, Mike Stidham. He was probably the greatest salesperson and mentor I ever had, and how to listen to people and take that information and turn it into their dreams. And then 3 would be Carolyn Acker, and it was always better to listen than to talk. and let your customers have the feeling that you have truly done them a service and that they are grateful to you for what you have done for their family. And then lastly, I would say our parents who have always told us, as kids, that we could do anything and be anything that we wanted to be. They not only said it, but they helped us conquer our hopes and dreams. And they were doers. And I would say their example of putting their words and their actions together is what made a difference. And I think it's the same application here. If your members will go out and ask people, hey, do you know anybody that wants to liquidate property? Or do you know a landlord who's tired of being the landlord? They'll just ask those two questions, the doors will just open.
Yeah, I think it presents a tremendous opportunity, and excited about exploring that more, and having you as a part of our team and the expertise of the coach to kind of help put these deals together and be there for all of our members. So it's going to be great. Hey, we're going to wrap up this section and this practice session of Pros on Demand. We want to thank our coach, Marci Dane, for joining us here today. And remember, if you'd like to see highlights in all these practice sessions, they're available anywhere, anytime, every time for all of our One Team members at oneteam.pro. And be sure to look for our weekly scouting reports to register and to share with potential members all about our upcoming practice sessions. Once again, we want to thank Coach Marci Dane, our real estate practices coach, for joining us today. Pros on Demand practice sessions are scheduled Monday through Thursdays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. With that, we're going to wrap up this practice session of Pros on Demand.